Joining us now, MSNBC White House reporter Laura Barron-Lopez, chair of the Advancing American Freedom Board, and former Trump White House Legislative Affairs Director Mark Short. Good to have you, sir. MSNBC columnist and contributor Philip Thump, and senior writer at The Dispatch and MSNBC contributor, once again, David Drucker. All right, Laura, H-1B visas. Is the White House concerned?
Look, I think the White House is definitely concerned because I was just talking to a former Trump advisor who regularly talks to White House staff still, and that advisor told me that staff is not happy about those comments that the president made during that Laura Ingraham interview, specifically because they feel like they were just trying to get him onto an affordability message, onto more of that America First message that you're talking about. And then he went and said this about American workers, saying that, no, America doesn't necessarily have, quote, certain talent. And this former advisor that I was speaking to said that cavalier approach, that's the word that they used, the fact that he was, quote, dismissing Americans, that's the problematic part for the president. And it's something that they feel that he needs to essentially stop saying. I mean, right now, they think that obviously this created a lot of backlash, and MAGA base and a number of Republicans across D.C. that I've talked to were not happy about this interview. They were frankly pissed off. But they said that they think that as long as the president sticks to his initial H-1B visa plan, which was to, add this $100,000 check to it and essentially say that he was going to restrict the number of high-skilled workers coming in, they think that if he sticks to that policy, then eventually this could potentially blow over.
Yeah, there was one social media post that I saw, Mark, that said, we trained a bunch of housewives in World War II to drill together airplanes. You're telling me we can't train people to work in tech or engineering? They were upset that Donald Trump would say this country doesn't have a smart enough, base of people to do it. But tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that this is not a big issue.
I don't think that the president's going to lose his support over immigration issues. I think that support is pretty well locked in. I think that the president has an adept ability to change positions quickly, and often he beta tests lines that he sees don't work, and he reverts back to his original position. Katie, you've covered him long enough. You'll recall multiple instances where this has happened on other areas, and maybe they're not perfect, analogies, but, certainly as you might recall after one of the tragedies in the first administration of a school shooting, he hosted a large group of senators in the cabinet room and called for gun bans. And, he quickly received what that response was from his base and reverted back to his original position. And I think that his base is going to give him a lot of latitude on issues when it comes to immigration, particularly when they see the border secure in ways that it was not in the previous administration. So, yeah, do I think this is an unforced error by him? It is. But do I think that it's something that he's going to lose his base over? No. I think you'll see him probably pivot back to original messaging on H-1B visas before too long.
David, we were just talking about another form of this conversation with the anti-Semitism stuff. But I wonder what you're seeing out there from your reporting. Do you think Mark's right? Do you think the base is not going anywhere, no matter what Donald Trump says?
Well, I mean, you never want to say never because eventually you're wrong. But I think Donald Trump continues to have a really unique, strong connection and relationship with his voting base, more so than other politicians I've seen. I think what this episode does tell us, though, is that his successor at the top of the ticket in 2028 for the Republican Party is going to have a much tougher time keeping the Trump coalition together and may not be able to do it. Donald Trump has always been just establishment enough for old guard Republicans and just anti-establishment enough for the populist right that doesn't vote in every election but has been reliably showing up whenever Donald Trump is on the ballot. I think we should also point out here that Donald Trump really fumbled the answer, which he doesn't, really do that often when talking about immigration. All he had to say was that, of course, we have a lot of American talent, but one of the things that has made us one of the greatest countries in the world and given us a competitive global edge that no other country has is we not only have our talent, we attract talent from around the world. They help us develop medical devices and technology and all the sorts of things that end up enriching the American economy and the American worker. So we're going to train up our talent and we're going to, scoop up talent from around the world, and nobody's going to be able to match us. Of course, that's not what he said.
Phil?
Yeah, I mean, I think David's exactly right. You should never bet against Donald Trump being able to lock down his base, right? It's been 10 years now since he's been the preeminent voice in Republican politics, and that is held true. I do think, though, that it's important to remember that every day that passes is one day closer to Donald Trump not being president anymore, and that there are a lot of people who are going to be jockeying for the attention of his base to potentially be the replacement or to carve off a slice of that power and attention for themselves. And so every day that passes, we see more and more of these sorts of fissures. And yes, he may be able to seal some of these fissures back up, but eventually there's going to be someone or something that emerges that he's not able to repair that ultimately that power and that attention are going to go somewhere else, and everyone is going to start making inroads. It's happening even as we speak.
Yeah, but I mean, there are a lot of there's a lot of discontent out there, and it's not just the stuff that you're seeing online, Mark. And I'll push back. You have Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's been becoming very quickly a big thorn in the president's side. She responded to him earlier this morning, saying he said that she had lost her way, and she says she's always been for the American people. NBC News is reporting that she's now questioning if Donald Trump is still the America First president. So I'll bring you back to the question I had at the beginning. So if the Tea Party became MAGA, and is MAGA still MAGA, or is MAGA becoming America First? And if so, is Donald Trump still that guy? Do you really think it's easy for him to brush these sorts of comments off?
No, I don't, Katie. To be clear, I didn't say he would never lose his base. What I said is I don't think he's in jeopardy of losing his base over this issue with immigration. And if we think that, he never does that on immigration issues, in the first administration, you might recall, he said, I think we should have a pathway to citizenship for DACA. And he wanted to offer that in exchange for border wall funding. And so he does do this, and he gets singed, and then, he responds. And he has an amazing ability to pivot and switch his positions and pretend he never had the other position. And so I don't think that his base is in risk of losing him, even if Marjorie Taylor Greene is out pushing for extension of Obamacare subsidies and Trump's not, or other areas that Marjorie Taylor Greene is pushing. I don't think that's at risk. I do think that obviously what we've seen, though, is that the party has abandoned its principles for traditional conservatism entirely. And now you have us basically advocating for massive protectionism, price controls on drug imports, state-owned enterprises, and things that are antithetical to conservatives or anybody who believes in free markets. And so, yeah, you might see people, break away from him at the moment, but I think that he'll pivot on some of the issues that are core to him, like immigration, and then he'll pivot back when he feels like the base is responding to a line that he's beta testing. Well,
there's an interesting overlap here, David, with what we were talking about a moment ago with the anti-Semitism stuff, because this idea of America First is being very wholly embraced by the Tucker Carlsons and the Nick Fuenteses on the right, but their version of it is even more extreme. It's white and Christian first. It's no immigrants. It's going back to a more familiar, in their terms, view of this country as something that is better off without immigration, without diversity.
Yeah, well, I mean, America First itself was a slogan that had been banished because that's what it originally meant, and until Donald Trump revived it and refashioned it, nobody used it for decades. I mean, look, this is I think a part of the debate that the country has from time to time, and I don't mean anti-Semitism and racism versus not. I just mean that there are always wings of the political parties that are pushing for either policies that are extreme or policies that are not acceptable, and that's where the political parties can be very useful because they can moderate and they can excise the extremes in their midst. It's just a matter of whether or not they're going to do it.
Yeah, they've got some Pam Bondi news I'm going to get to in one second, but just one more to you, Phil. There's this bumping of heads. There's this fight within the Republican Party for what it's going to be. Maybe Donald Trump is Donald Trump for the next 3 years. But what it's going to be after Donald Trump, what it looks like. Is it the Tucker Carlson party, or does it go to back to, I don't know, some other form of normie Republican? Okay. Does it become this white nationalist party that believes that immigration wholeheartedly is bad and that this country should be Christian and Christian first and foremost?
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge that the party has fundamentally is that Donald Trump has successfully shifted the political right in this country to essentially an attention-based economy. And the things that seize the most attention, the reason that we know who Nick Fuentes is, that you can just mention him and assume people know who he is he's very good at getting attention, right? And he does that by being provocative. He does that by saying things that are beyond the pale and that are outside the norms of what we would accept. But he gets a base because of that. And because of that shift toward this attention-seeking, that's the locus of power. That is what's being fought over. And so you are not going to win that. You know, God bless Mark Short, but you're not going to win that by saying, but what we need to do is move back to free trade. That's not the sort of thing that compels that the people who
Those
see that attention. Exactly. And so that's what the fight is going to be, unless there's a total revamp of what it means to be on the political right.